Jean Adrienne.
Good evening. Happy Monday. This is Power Talk. I am your host, Jean Adrienne, and I'm so glad you're taking time to join me here. We are a little bit late getting started tonight. We had a little technical glitch, but we are now up and running. So, my show tonight is going to talk about health and wellness, and we're focusing on sugar. One of our things we love to hate and love to love. My guest tonight is Rena Greenberg. She's the CEO of Wellness Seminars, and she's the founder of Rena's Organics. And she has just written a powerhouse new book called The Easy Sugar Breakup. So welcome, Rena.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about you and how you got focused on health.
Thanks, Jean. Great question. So what happened for me was I was living a very fast-paced lifestyle, not really thinking about health. And all of a sudden, my health came crashing in. I was young. I was in my then mid-20s. And basically, it was literally as if someone pulled the plug. I just lost all my energy. And again, I was in New York, so I was used to, always on the go. And I was working in travel and fashion and entertainment. And all of a sudden, I really couldn't do anything. And so it was very scary for me. I started pounding the pavement, going from doctor to doctor. No one found anything. But after a year, I just ended up randomly walking into Brooklyn's Methodist Hospital's ER. And to my surprise, because after being told over and over, there's nothing wrong, and they basically whisked me in, hooked me up, and told me that my heart, basically they told me I was dying, that my heart rate had gone down into the 30s, it was irregular, and that they needed to admit me immediately.
Whoa. So what caused that?
Well, a cause was never found.
Mm-hmm.
There were some, guesses about it. I was in a teaching hospital, and the chief of cardiology did a test on my heart and looked in and, surrounded by doctors. And at the end of the test, he said to me, he said, you have the heart of an 80-year-old. And I was 26 at the time. So
wow.
Very scary. So we didn't know the cause, but what happened was after 3 weeks in the cardiac care unit, I walked out and and my whole life obviously changed. I was so full of gratitude that I was still here. And I really felt like this was a divine message for me. First of all, that I even survived it, that I even happened to walk into the ER, after being told over and over, there's nothing wrong with me. And then by then, what they did in the hospital is they put a permanent pacemaker into my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And, that alone really didn't necessarily restore my health. I started to think that maybe the whole issue with my heart was just a symptom of a broader problem. And I knew there was, a lot that I couldn't control, but there were some things that I could control in terms of lifestyle and eating. And that's what I decided to do. And I launched, I started to walk down a whole new road. And interestingly, back then, there wasn't a whole lot of support for that. In fact, even in the hospital, the doctors told me that it was almost impossible that my lifestyle and diet had anything to do with a situation So, but even still, I'm so grateful that the message came in really clearly for me that whether or not my lifestyle and eating actually caused the problem, it certainly was where I needed to head in a new direction if I wanted to not only live, but thrive.
Yeah, it's amazing how the universe sometimes has to get us with a 2x4, in order to get us to do what we need to do. And more often than not, to get us to step into our destiny. And, after reading your book, it sounds like that helping people find health is your destiny.
It's been such a blessing. It really has. And so it took me a couple of years to restore my health. And what I did was, I was in New York, so I went back to Brooklyn College and I started studying. I got my degree actually in biopsychology, but aside from that, I started taking courses everywhere I could. I learned about herbology and nutrition. But at that time, the area of health that fascinated me the most was the power of the mind. Mm-hmm. I sort of stumbled upon it by seeking out biofeedback, which I didn't even really know what it was. But I soon discovered that it was what happens is you get hooked up to instruments that measure your blood pressure, your heart rate, your temperature. But it was interesting because my biofeedback therapist, it was actually Susan Shore and Lester Femi in New York. And it turns out they were the leaders in the field of biofeedback at the time, which was only a decade or so old. And what I realized, even though they never used the word hypnosis, it was all about changing your awareness, your consciousness, your thinking, your state of being. That's what was going to change those biofeedback instruments. In other words, if I wanted to bring my skin temperature up 6 degrees, the machines weren't going to do it. They were like a mirror. And so I started to learn all these techniques really for self-empowerment. And I really began to firsthand see that mind-body connection. That when I change my thoughts, or let's say my awareness of space, not even necessarily the thoughts, but just my bodily awareness, how all of a sudden I was changing my blood pressure, my heart rate, my skin temperature, my brain waves. And that was the beginning. That was really a new beginning. And that was my passion, and where I wanted to teach others to do the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. And it's so important. I mean, I use similar techniques with myself in my work. I talk to the souls of my cells. I mean, I don't have hypnosis. I don't have those skills, but I know that your intention can make anything happen.
It's unbelievable. It really is. Yeah. And so the area, I mean, we can do this, of course, in all areas of our lives. But the area that I felt so called on to focus on was people struggling with addiction and smoking cigarettes, food addiction, weight issues. My heart really went to that particular population because I had struggled so much with addiction. And especially, being young in New York, at the time, everything just seemed normal. I mean, it didn't seem like I was any more addicted than anyone else. But it's interesting, this whole idea of comparing yourself to others. And when you kind of step away from that and really focus on what does my body want and need, it's a whole other focus.
Oh, yeah.
And so I began doing seminars in corporations and hospitals where I would get large groups of people from the communities, local communities. And I would give these very powerful, only 2-hour hypnotic sessions. And it was amazing. People would quit smoking, people would lose weight. I'd have unbelievable reports of life changes. And it was just so exciting to be able to do that.
Yeah, the power of the mind. So, so you focus in your book on sugar, and sugar is a huge addiction for so much of the population, not only in the United States, but certainly in the United States and the rest of the world. So, how do you help people to break this habit?
Yeah. Well, believe me, I really relate to sugar addiction because it turned out, I mean, no one else ever gave me that label, but I would really say about myself that I definitely was and even am a sugar addict. So one of the first things I did on my road to recovery was I made a decision that I needed to change the way I eat. And I realized that the whole world of dieting, I mean, diets can never work in the long run because the minute you go on a diet, subconsciously you're just waiting to go off it.
Right.
And so I understand how painful that yo-yo is. So the only way to permanently not just lose weight, but really feel good in your body and let go of the whole compulsion for sugar and all that, and then eating it and feeling badly and all of that is really the key to success is changing the way you think about food subconsciously, and so that you don't want the sugar anymore, and then you're absolutely free. And so really what I've come up with are tools and strategies to change the way you think about sugar. And so then once you can make that shift and stop eating it, it's really miraculous. Your cravings change and you don't want it anymore.
So one of the things that you do through hypnotherapy, and I find this fascinating, is this gastric bypass hypnosis thing. That sounds crazy. So tell me how it works.
Well, it's very, very exciting. And what had happened was I had discovered, I actually got a phone call from 2020, and it was about, I'd say 2011 or so. And they were reporting on some hypnotherapists in Spain that were doing gastric bypass hypnosis. And so I started to read all about it. And it was really interesting. And apparently one of this hypnotherapist in Spain, one of her clients said, gee, I wish I could have the effects of the surgery without actually having the surgery. And she went about creating the process and started to have results with it. So when I got that phone call, and they were doing this story on the gastric bypass hypnosis in Europe. And so I studied everything I could about it. And I was really one of the first in the United States to start doing it here. And it was wonderful because I was already working with the weight loss population. So many of them were excited when I started doing the gastric bypass hypnosis and wanted to absolutely give it a shot. So I had people that had lost, like I'm thinking of one woman, Julie, she had already lost 100 pounds, but then she still had more to go. So then we did the gastric bypass hypnosis and she just took off, that additional 50 pounds. What I love about it is that, there's nothing invasive.
Right.
So even though the actual surgery has been so beneficial for many people, I've also heard the stories from many people, not only where it doesn't work, because nothing works for everybody, but where actually, harm has been done to people.
Well, yeah, because then they can't metabolize the nutrients that they need, because a lot of that stuff is done in the area where they're cutting parts out of people.
Exactly. So what I loved about it was, do no harm, right? Isn't that what we all have? Yeah. So gastric bypass hypnosis is simply doing the surgery virtually. And the feedback's incredible. People say to me, I saw the doctor, I saw the nurse, the anesthesiologist. I felt when the mask went on, I went under. And they come up and they say, I'm happy with less food. I'm able to push food away, smaller portions. I'm happier with healthier food. And so it's wonderful because the only way to change any of this permanently is to change your subconscious thoughts about yourself and food.
Absolutely. Now you sell DVDs that have this procedure on that people can actually do this on their own, right?
That's right. Yeah. I have a gastric bypass hypnosis program. Some people want to work with me privately and I do the sessions on Skype or face-to-face in Florida, some even on the phone. I've had some of my biggest weight losses. I've never even seen the person. We're just doing it on the phone. It's amazing. But also, just to empower people, I have it as an at-home system that people can just use those CDs and get the same results.
Now, how would people get that? How can they find this?
So at Easy, that's EASY, Easy Willpower, WILLPOWER.com.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So I want to move into another thing that you also have a company, this Rena's Organic. Talk to me about that, because to me that and weight loss seems a little bit paradoxical. If you're using CBD to stop cravings, my understanding is that when you take in CBD that you want to eat lots of food.
Good point. I'm so glad you brought that up because there are so many misconceptions about CBD. I kind of fell into creating the line Rena's Organic. I had never expected to, create products. And in fact, for decades, people who would, come to my seminars and work with me would ask me, about products. And I said, I never recommended any particular supplements because I feel like some people's bodies are so sensitive and it's such an individual thing. But almost 2 years ago, I had amazing results with CBD for a very serious eye condition called glaucoma. My pressures were up. And with glaucoma, you don't feel anything. There's no pain, but it's a rapid loss of vision, or it can be. So I was concerned, and my pressures in the eye were quite out of control. So I didn't have a lot of choices. I was very reluctant to try CBD because I was concerned, was it related to its sort of the sister plant, the cannabis plant, THC. But I was educated and realized, it was brought to my attention, no, CBD does not get you high. It's not psychoactive. And I had great results. Not only did my eye pressures go down, but I felt my hormones were more balanced. My blood sugar was more balanced. So I wanted to recommend CBD. And what happened was when I looked out at the marketplace, I saw so much misinformation and even, I hate to say it, but outright marketing deception. In terms, it was so confusing for people, potencies, what to buy. And so I saw very low potencies out there. A lot of times it was like hemp or hemp oil, not really CBD, and yet charging, high prices. So it took me over a year to research to find the very best CBD, the very best farm. And what I also was able to do is create a product called CBD Super Cider which is specifically that helps people. It helps people with cravings because it has high quality, high potency, 400 milligrams full spectrum CBD, which is important distinction. And then it has also 40 grams of other herbal cannabinoids in the formula in a base of organic apple cider vinegar. And the only sweetener is pure organic cherries from the farm, picked straight from those trees in Washington State.
Yeah.
So through
I found
research,
that very appealing as I read about that.
oh, thank you.
So I think I'm going to order some of that and just see how that works.
Wonderful. Yeah. I've had great feedback on it. Yeah.
Cool beans. So is there any one thing that you would want readers to know about your program here that would entice them to go get your book?
Thanks. And, it's a great question because really the book has so many aspects to it.
It does.
Yeah.
Recipes, guys, really great recipes.
Oh, yes. Yeah, because it really is a mind, body, spirit approach. So often with weight loss, people will focus, let's say, only on one aspect. And doing hypnotherapy, a lot of people will come and they'll think, oh, I just have to explore my childhood. Many people have been abused in one way or another. And that's a very important factor. However, what I see often is that people also get stuck there. And some people, it's really sad to me. I see people who have been in therapy maybe 10, 20 years, and they already understand, their history and how it's impacted their life, but they're not yet able to switch to changing the behavior. So I feel like one of the most important aspects of my book are the practical strategies using neurolinguistic programming, even using breath work, using imagery, visualization, self-hypnosis, all these powerful tools to actually shift what we're focused on. A lot of times what we don't realize is that before we do anything, so for example, before we either reach for that donut or before we put on our jogging shorts and go running around the park, there's a mental movie that plays in the mind. And we want to start to become aware of that so we can make ourselves the hero or the heroine of our own journey.
Now, I love how you start by helping the reader to find the limiting beliefs that they aren't even aware they have. That's beautiful.
Yes, thank you. So important.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Important. Yeah, because we're on autopilot most of the time. As intelligent as we like to think we are, 99% of what we're doing today, it's because we did it yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's beautiful. So, viewers, you need to get your hands on this book. It's The Easy Sugar Breakup. And I promise you, it's good. You will benefit from this, as I have. And I'm also going to try Rena's Organics. I'm going to get an order placed to you this week.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us, Rena, and sharing your tips about addiction, about cleaning our lives up so that we can be happy and healthy and be who we came here to be.
Yes, thank you so much, Jean.
And viewers, next week, my guest is going to be Melody, a Scout. She's got a book called Soul of the Seasons, and we're going to talk about how we can get in tune with nature to make our lives more robust and rich. So join me next week. And until then, remember, people who take responsibility for their lives create the realities they desire. I love you all. See you next time. Bye-bye.